Welcome back, everyone. I'm so excited for our deep dive today. We're tackling leadership, but in a time of crazy technological change.
Yeah, it's not just about like the latest gadget, right? It's about how we lead and adapt in a world where the whole game is changing faster than ever.
Right. And the sources you've got us digging into, they're wild. Articles on AI, leadership books, even firsthand accounts from people climbing Everest. You weren't kidding about a mix.
It's an eclectic mix for sure, but it really highlights how these different worlds, they actually connect. Like the same skills that get a team to the top of Everest. Those can be mega valuable in a boardroom facing digital disruption. It's all connected.
Okay, so mission control for this deep dive. You want to know how to not just survive, but really thrive as a leader now, right?
Yes, exactly.
And some of these sources, they suggest the answer is, well, we got to think differently, like way differently.
That's true. We're talking like fundamentally differently.
Almost like, remember that kid in Figure 8 who tried to swipe a physical book, expecting it to work like their phone?
Oh, yeah. Perfect example. That story, it really highlights how our brains, we're wired for a linear world.
Totally.
And that can make it really hard to grasp how fast things are really changing.
It's not just kids and books, though, right? This impacts how we lead, create strategy, even just how we live our lives.
Huge implications.
Yeah.
It's like, imagine trying to catch a train that's constantly speeding up. That's what a lot of us are doing without realizing it.
Okay, yeah, that's a stressful image.
Yeah.
So as leaders, how do we not get left behind?
So one key from the research is rewiring our thinking. It's called exponential thinking.
Exponential thinking.
Yeah. Think Moore's law, but for everything.
Yeah.
Change isn't just linear anymore, it's compounding.
Yeah.
And that changes how we need to plan, make decisions, motivate teams. The whole game changes with that in mind.
Okay, I'm picking up what you're putting down, but it also sounds kind of intimidating, this whole exponential thing. Got an example of what it actually looks like in action?
Sure, so picture this. You're leading a healthcare company, right?
Okay.
A linear thinker. They're focused on making existing treatments a little bit better.
Incremental, right? Makes sense.
But the exponential thinker, they're asking, what if we could prevent those diseases altogether with AI diagnostics?
Whoa.
Right? It's a totally different game. They're focused on things that sound crazy now, but could be normal in a few years.
I'm seeing how that mindset shift, that could be huge. But it makes you think about the people involved. We could talk algorithms and AI all day, but isn't it still humans leading humans at the end of the day?
100%. And that's exactly why emotional intelligence, EQ, it's more important than ever.
Okay.
As tech gets more advanced, it's the stuff machines can't do that'll set great leaders apart. Empathy, self-awareness, building trust, all those very human things.
And this is where I think my own story in Figure 8 comes in, right? Early in my career, I was good, technically, but EQ, oof, total disaster.
You and me both, probably.
It cost me a promotion. Hard lesson to learn that being good at the technical stuff just isn't enough to lead well.
It's so true. And your experience, it's exactly what Google found in their Project Oxygen research, which is fascinating when you think about it, right?
Because they're all about algorithms.
Exactly. But even at Google, this tech giant, the best managers weren't the most technical. It was their EQ skills. Coaching, empowering their teams, being inclusive, that's what matters.
So even at Google, it's the human touch that wins. I guess it makes sense when you say it like that, but you wouldn't expect that from a company like leading AI and all. Speaking of which, all this tech brings up some ethical stuff too, AI bias, unintended consequences. Is that just hype? Or should leaders be seriously worried?
It's way more than hype. That McKinsey report you sent, it argues that responsible tech is becoming a huge business advantage. Not just, the right thing to do, but good for business.
Interesting.
Yeah, companies that are proactive about these ethical issues, they build trust with customers, they attract better talent. It's a win-win.
So it's not just about being ethical, it's about building a business that lasts.
Exactly. It's remember that Everest example?
Yeah.
Climbers don't get to the top without thinking about their environmental impact, making sure what they're doing is sustainable for the mountain, right? It's not just about getting to the top, but how you get there. Same principle, different context.
Man, I'm getting chills just thinking about that. But how do we actually translate that to, let's say, developing AI or running a tech startup? That's where I get fuzzy.
Well, I think it starts by recognizing that even the most advanced technology, it's a tool. And like any tool.
It can be used for good or for not so good.
Right. That anecdote from Figure 8 about the author's experience with Tesla's autopilot, remember that one?
Yeah.
Even with a system that advanced, there were times when it just disengaged. like force the author to take over.
Really? With Tesla self-driving?
Yeah, it's a good reminder, even when tech seems super capable, we're not at a point where we can just let it run wild. Human judgment, still essential. Oversight, being in the loop, it's still so important. Like, with great power comes great responsibility.
Yeah, exactly. But how do we, as leaders, how do we even wrap our heads around those responsibilities when it comes to tech that's changing so fast? It feels like a moving target.
It is a moving target, you're right. It starts with understanding that responsible tech, it's bigger than just avoiding AI bias. It's about the whole impact of what we're creating.
On society, I mean.
Okay, I'm listening.
So are we building tech that empowers people? Or are we putting people out of work? Are we thinking about the consequences, the unintended ones, or just full steam ahead? Those are the questions right from the start, not after something goes wrong.
So it's almost like building ethics into the DNA of our companies.
Yeah,
And the actual technology itself, like that. It's not just a checklist, but part of how we innovate.
exactly. And that sense of purpose you're talking about,
Yeah.
working towards something bigger, that connects perfectly to another big theme from these sources, trust.
Trust, right. We touched on that earlier. But it does keep popping up in the Everest stories with the tech startups. What's the connection? Think of it like this. Climbing a mountain, right? Or navigating this crazy tech world. In both cases, you have to know the people around you, you can count on them.
You need to be able to rely on them, that they're good at what they do.
Yes, you need that trust. That they're competent, they have your back, they're committed, the whole package.
Okay, that makes sense. But how do you actually build that trust? Especially when everything's moving so fast, so much pressure. Can you even force that to happen?
Definitely not about forcing. Remember that story from Figure 8, the team building at Everest Space Camp?
You mean where they all get together, share their strengths, their weaknesses, what motivates them, all before even starting the climb?
Yes. Give you chills, right?
It did, for real. Powerful story.
It shows how powerful vulnerability can be, especially for leaders.
Oh,
When a leader's willing to say, hey, I don't know everything, I mess up too, it lets other people do the same. That's where real trust starts.
creates that safe space. People feel okay taking risks, admitting mistakes, all that.
Exactly. And this is where the Figure 8 model itself gives us a really useful way to think about all this.
Okay, how so?
It's about being strong, yeah, but flexible too. Able to handle the tough stuff, but also adapt when things change. Like that Figure 8 knot. Strong, but you can tie, untie, retie as needed.
So, practical advice time. How does this Figure 8 idea, how do we use it? We've got adaptability, exponential thinking, emotional intelligence, trust. How's all fit together?
So think of Figure 8 as these core principles, guiding principles for leading in this new reality,
Okay, I like that.
First up, adaptability. Huge E. Remember that runaway train? We got to be learning, unlearning, relearning constantly. The landscape changes, we change with it.
Not about holding on to the old ways, but being open to the new stuff. New tech, new ways of working, all of it.
Yes, and that ties right into the next one. Exponential thinking. We're talking about looking beyond those small improvements, asking those what-if questions.
What if we could solve this in a totally new way? What if we could create a future we can't even imagine yet?
Right, exactly. You're getting it.
Okay, feeling inspired.
Yeah.
But, real talk, big ideas are great, but you need the right people to actually make them happen.
Couldn't agree more. And that's where championing inclusion comes in. This isn't about checking a box. It's about recognizing that different perspectives, that's how you get better solutions, stronger teams, the whole thing.
It's about making sure everyone feels valued, respected, able to contribute, like no matter their background, right? Just like those climbers at base camp, they needed each other's strengths.
100%. And when you've got that foundation of trust, that shared why, then you can start inspiring bold action. That's when things get really interesting.
Okay, yeah, I can see how these principles, they build on each other. But inspiring bold action, that can be intimidating. Where do you even start with that?
It starts with a vision, a strong vision, like a really compelling why that your team connects with, believes in. People are more likely to take risks, push boundaries when they understand the why, the bigger purpose.
So it's not just about setting these crazy goals, but connecting them to something meaningful.
You got it. And then lastly, this is important. All of this, the adaptability, the exponential thinking, the inclusion, the bold action, it's all got to be fueled by continuous learning, always transforming, never getting stuck.
Always growing, always learning new skills, new ways to think. I like that. It's like approaching leadership in life, really, with this curiosity, this openness to the unknown.
Exactly. Which brings us right back to that metaphor of the figure eight knot itself.
This figure eight concept is really resonating with me, especially the way you've connected it to that knot you know. It's strong, adaptable, it can be tied and untied as needed. It's a great visual for the kind of leadership we're talking about.
It really is, isn't it? And I think that's the key with figure eight. It's not about these rigid steps, you know? It's more like embodying the principles in a way that makes sense for you in your situation.
So it's not one size fits all.
Right. Especially in a world that's changing this fast. You got to stay flexible.
Makes total sense. So for our listener who's been with us this whole time on this deep dive, taking it all in, what's the one thing they should really take away? Like to actually use in their work, their own leadership?
That's a great question. I'd say think about which of these principles feels most, I don't know, urgent, exciting right now in this moment. Like if you could master just one of them, which one would have the biggest impact?
I like that. It's not about doing everything at once, but picking that one thing to really focus on, to play with. Maybe it's getting comfortable with those what-if questions or having those, courageous conversations that really build trust.
Yes, exactly that. And remember, leadership, it's not a destination, it's a journey. You're going to make mistakes, have to change course. That's normal. That's where the adaptability part of figure eight comes in.
Makes sense. This has been seriously insightful. But before we wrap up, one more thing. We talked about some amazing leaders, incredible stories, Everest, tech innovation, all of it. But what about when it feels impossible? Like the challenges are just overwhelming. What can our listener take from all this to stay motivated?
That reminds me of Dr. Daniel Cordero's story in figure eight. Remember, he left this prestigious position at Yale to start his own foundation, focused on well-being, innovation in schools, really big picture stuff. It was a total what-if moment for him.
Wow, yeah, that takes guts.
And it makes you wonder, right? Like, what could each of us achieve if we brought that same figure eight mindset to our own passions?
What impossible thing could we make happen? That's a powerful question to end on.
It starts with that first step, that first, leap of faith to embrace the principles that speak to us, the ones that resonate.
This deep dive has been a whirlwind, a real call to action for us to step up, lead with, not just our heads, but our hearts too, don't you think?
Couldn't have said it better myself. And if our listener wants to dive even deeper into all this, well, figure eight is waiting for them.
Consider it added to the reading list. And to everyone listening, thank you for joining us for this journey into leadership, especially in this age of, exponential everything. Until next time, keep those figure eight wheels turning.